What's up, guys? Today's episode is sponsored by Turn the Page Editing. Whether you are looking for an editor or a writer, they will help you with your latest endeavor as beautiful and well-written as possible. Turn the Page offers a number of services that include general editing and proofing, copywriting and editing, and manuscript editing and proofing, which I can speak personally is a lifesaver. Visit turnthepageediting.com to get started. Remember to put too many words in the subject line. Today's episode is also sponsored by LuLaRoe. LuLaRoe is a clothing company that provides comfortable, fashionable, and unique clothing for everyone. The famous soft, buttery leggings are only the beginning. LuLaRoe also has an amazing line of women's dresses, skirts, tunics, and t-shirts. You will get 20% off your next order when you put too many words in the subject line. Go to facebook.com/groups/LuLaRoe Rebecca Clark VIP. All right, let's do the show. What's up, everybody? I am Jayme Bedingfield. You are listening to my podcast, Too Many Words. Welcome to the show. Welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, 2 thumbs up for tuning in. And for all of you that have been with me through the last year, Happy New Year. Well, Happy New Year to everybody, but this is the first show of the year. I'm getting back from 3 weeks off, a little bit more than that with the show, but I took 3 solid weeks off of work and getting back in the swing of things. I'm excited. I'm excited about today's show. It's a good show for you guys. Get your expectations high, get them up, and don't let them down. Yes, like I said, I'm getting back in the swing of things. I might be a little bit more awkward than usual, but yes, back to this show. I have the awesome, wildly talented author Adam Silvera on the show, and we're going to get to the conversation a little bit. I talked to him earlier in the week, and what a treat. He was fantastic to talk to, had a lot of interesting things to say about the writing process itself, but also we got into his brand new release. The official release date is January 17th, which is coming up soon or already here, depending on when you're listening to this. But yes, History is All You Left Me is his new book, and wow. So yes, I have reviews for it coming up very soon, next week on the blog and the week after right here. But I will briefly say that this is by far one of the best YA books that I have read in the last 8 months. Truly just beautiful. Quite a balance between there's sadness and happiness, and how life is just not simple. It's complicated and messy, and it can't really be put into just a category. And dealing with grief, for those of you that have been listening to me for a while, you know my trials with last fall when I lost my friend, and it's a big deal. So the fact that this book is out here and can help out those who are going through it, who have experienced or are currently experiencing it. So, important book here, folks. But yes, it was great talking to Adam, and I will get to that conversation in a little bit. But yeah, so how's it going? How's everybody doing? It's 2017. Some of us I know have, our New Year's resolutions either going strong or whatever, and we are over a week into the new year, and I've come to the same conclusion I come to every January. Life is life. Change is unavoidable, but is usually gradual. But though, we all know that's not always the case. Goals are important. Self-awareness is pretty key to being kind and having a positive impact on the world around. I'm not a huge adopter of New Year's resolutions. I don't like putting pressure on the day due to significance tangled up with the date. I think probably part of it is, though, I can't make a resolution without somehow putting some or 10 work goals into it, or, But that, everybody do your thing. Listen to your gut. Make good decisions. Learn from your mistakes. Not sure why I'm lecturing you. 3 weeks is a long time. But no, I'm excited for the year career-wise. There's a lot going on. Government-wise, I'm not excited at all. But all that we can't control is scary. And sometimes I look up at the sky just to feel humbled, and it's helpful, especially when stress is high. We're all small pieces to this big puzzle, and it's the small moments and the small quick decisions that come together and build something, much larger than all of us. And but yeah, time off was great. It was weird at first. It was sandwiched, it was like a lot of awesome holiday family quality time. And it was sandwiched between the initial few days of still worrying about, projects, and then the final, few before break was over, I was just nervous about getting back to it. I mean, it's like, even though I'm just going to a different part of my house in my office wearing pajama pants, it's still like a little bit of that like back to school like anxiety. Who knows? But I received a review copy of Apex Publications' newest anthology, Upside Down: Inverted Tropes in Storytelling. This anthology it's a real treasure for both readers and writers. I just loved it. Editorial super team Jayme Gates and Jayme Gates, I apologize if I mispronounced your name, and Monica Valentinelli did just a splendid job compiling stories and poems and essays of well-trodden fantasy and science fiction tropes turned upside down. And, unlike novels with anthologies, you have the option of just kind of bouncing around what title grabs you, a particular writer that you were looking forward to in the anthology. And but sometimes, I do that, but right from the get-go. And I did the second time through this anthology, but the first time through, I was glued to each page from the first to the last, the index of the tropes in the back, and the stories that tackled them. Oh, sorry, my voice. Getting over, actually, I was sick over the weekend and my throat is still not doing stuff. But yeah, so the index detailing the tropes and the stories that tackle them encouraged me to go back twice, actually. It was fun reading the stories without knowing the tropes, or knowing the tropes, but not really just like getting into the author's approach and that kind of thing, which in the back of the book kind of gets into that a little bit, and it's really neat. And that there is comfort in tropes. As readers, they give us something to hang our hat on. As writers, we need to wield them, and to just name a couple, Delilah S. Dawson and Alyssa Wong have stories featured in this anthology that just, they blew my mind. So it's for sure worth a pickup. Each story really has its wow moments. There is whimsy and underlining darkness, heartbreak, satire, and that just flows well throughout the whole anthology. So it's definitely worth the grab, and so go do that. Now, I think that will take us to my talk with Adam, coming up now. Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Just getting back in the swing of things. I took 3 weeks off over the holidays, so I'm like slowly piecing myself together and getting up to speed.
I'm with you. Yeah, I took 2 weeks away. I was with my boyfriend and his family in Las Vegas, and just readjusting back to the time zone, of course, was its own trial. But yeah, happy to be back, and happy to be back at work as well.
Yeah, same here. But it takes a second. Like last week, I was 3 days. I started back on Wednesday, and man, I was slowly chugging.
Yeah, no, that sounds very familiar. I've been taking very long naps every day, like hour long, 2 hour long naps, like just to kind of like set myself back into gear. So
that's nice. That's nice that you can take naps. I can't take naps. If I take a nap during the day, I wake up as something different and not that great.
I am a nap champion. Like, I mean, I kind of like, I pride myself on my ability to nap like anywhere at any time. So it's a good superpower.
That is a good superpower.
Yeah.
Well, so you have an exciting release. History is all you left me. Official release date is Tuesday.
17.
Yep.
Yeah. So 1/17/2017. It's I'm really excited. My debut, More Happy Than Not, released in June 2015. So I didn't really have a book published in 2016, but like 2 weeks or 3 weeks after. 2 weeks after the new year, still feels a bit like a 2016 release. But no, I'm happy it's finally here. It was a really difficult book, but I'm so excited to hit the road again and start talking about it.
Well, so I officially finished it this morning, and if I'm being completely honest, I was a little bit nervous because I knew the subject matter, and I lost my best friend to cancer last year.
Wow.
So I knew that reading this would stir some stuff, and wow, it's amazing, Adam. It simultaneously punched me in the heart and gave me a hug.
Yeah, that's. First of all, sorry for your loss, of course. And secondly, I mean that I don't know, that makes it feel even more powerful, I guess. And I mean, I was hoping that I didn't want to write this like completely depressing and like devastating novel. I did want to like give grief, and treat it with like authenticity. But yeah, no. So I've been really relieved at people's reactions and hearing stories like this.
Well, you definitely achieved that because, I mean, as like world crushing and perspective altering grief can be, there's also, there's still life and things still happen and there's still those small moments. And you do an incredible job painting it. It's really, really incredible.
Thank you. No, it was a hard book. It was like the longest I've ever spent on a draft. Like, I mean, I've written 3 books total, and book 1 took me 2 months to draft. Book 3 took me 2 months to draft. But History's All You Left Me took me like 13 months. And just like because of the structure and just like digging deep into Griffin's headspace, the narrator Griffin. It took me a bit, but I'm so proud of the result. Like, I think it's like, I don't know, I think it's like the best book I've written so far. I know that's like only 3 books, so it's not like the widest, largest catalog, but I mean, I'm very proud of it.
You should be. No, it's really amazing. And the thought crossed my mind while I was reading it was how difficult it probably was to get in that mindset, especially when you were writing for Griffin.
No, yeah, I mean, really, it came from this place of like, so the book was inspired by a breakup with like my ex-boyfriend. Obviously, he's my ex-boyfriend. It was a breakup. But like we remained like really close in each other's lives, and like he's one of my best friends today. But there was still a point where I was like still like really wildly in love with him, and we broke up because of long distance, and it was one of those things where it was like, okay, like we'll get back together when it like makes sense or something, but like right now it was better to kind of like set ourselves up to be friends so we don't begin resenting each other because of like a long distance relationship. But then eventually, like maybe like 10 months later, he met someone else, and I remember feeling just like so competitive with this person. And I was like, oh man, like, whatever. This guy is just like in it for the short haul. He's very convenient because he lives around my ex-boyfriend. And then one day my ex called me and he said, oh my God, like he and his boyfriend had almost just drowned, like, at the beach. And this like hot lifeguard, that detail's not important, but it's always fun to share. A hot lifeguard saved them. But it just had me thinking, while I was still in love with this person, it's like, wow, like what would have happened if he just died here? Like, here's a person who I'm like imagining a future with and like expecting to, like, we're not together right now, but we will be. And when we reconnect, it'll be for the long haul, like where would that have left me? And like the book came from there. And and I wrote it. I remember I wrote the first couple chapters, and he's a writer as well. So I was telling him, I was like, hey, so I'm like writing this book that's like 100% inspired by a breakup. Here's the premise. And he's like, so you're killing me off. I'm like, yes. And I was like, yeah, I just want to see what this would have looked like if you had actually died. And he's like, oh, it's a great premise. I'm jealous I didn't think of it. So he's reading it right now. It's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and you have some dates that that are coming up next week where you're going to be with books and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to be traveling. So my official launch party is going to be in New York City at Books of Wonder, which is my favorite bookstore. It's on January 16th, and then January 17th, on my release day, I will be in Nashville, hosted by Parnassus Books, where I'll be alongside two of my favorite authors, Jeff Zentner and David Arnold. And then Wednesday, December 18th, I will be in Decatur, Georgia, a little shop of stories with Becky Albertalli. And then January 19th, I will be in Chicago with this really awesome booktuber Tiernan at Anderson's Bookshop. And then on January 20th, I will be in Los Angeles at the Barnes & Noble Grove with bestselling author Jennifer Niven and two awesome booktubers, Tasha Opolis and Christine Ricci.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's tons of travel.
Tons of travel, yeah. You're going to be in some awesome company too, though. That'll be fun. Yeah,
they're awesome. I mean, some of them are friends, and I would actually say like they're all friends. So that was like one of the things for the tour. They were like, "Where do you want to go?" And like, "What do you want to see again?" And these were just some of my favorite bookstores and bookstores that supported my debut so significantly that I, of course, like wanted to revisit them for the follow up.
Nice. Books of Wonder is a great bookstore. I'm originally from New Jersey.
Cool.
I live in Seattle now, but there is something magical about certain places in New York, and I also miss pizza.
Yeah, no, pizza's great. Books of Wonder is slightly greater. I actually used to work at Books of Wonder. I was working there. I mean, I've been working there like on and off for like years. Like I was originally a bookseller at Barnes & Noble. I started that around bookselling around 2009. And then when I was 19 years old. And then in 2011 in the fall, right before Thanksgiving, I transitioned to Books of Wonder. And I loved it so much. And it just really gave me a deeper, more intimate education on children's books and picture books and just so many things that I just didn't learn, in my previous experiences. So, I mean, literally whenever I'm bored and need a job, just get out the house and moving, I would literally just call them hey, can I come work with you guys for a couple months? And do you need help with any special projects? And they would without question always take me back. Yeah, we'll figure it out. And just come in on Monday or whatever. So I love them. They're my family. I'm so happy to see them again on Monday.
Well, that's awesome. So yeah. What I'm gathering though, so you love books, and it's been a kind of a long-term relationship there.
Yeah, I've been writing since I was 11. So I was writing a lot of fan fiction, especially in the Harry Potter arena, because that was my generation. It's so funny in so many young adult books today, all the narrators, so many of the narrators seem to be obsessed with Jane Austen and so many other classics or whatever that I just never read, but as you see more writers my age publishing, all their characters are obsessed with Harry Potter and all their characters are obsessed with so many of these other things that feel more like our generation. And it's awesome. And I can only imagine how that makes J.K. Rowling feel to know that literally entire leagues and leagues of writers are writing because of her. I think we all would have written at some point anyway. I don't doubt that, but it was a very early and significant spark for so many of us.
Yeah.
And definitely was for me. I have a Harry Potter tattoo that says ridiculous. It's my favorite spell from the third book, which is my favorite of the series. And and then I feel like I'm kind of reversed in a lot of ways because I often hear that writers were readers first, and I definitely would say that I was a writer first. Like, I didn't become like a super active reader until I was like 19. So yeah, it was just, I mean, it really was just, I don't know, I always had these like what if questions, and like the books I was reading, which were mainly just Harry Potter, and I was writing like my own original stories as well, but mainly fan fiction, and I was just like constantly writing. Like, I'm such a slow reader today, but like when I'm in a flow, I can be like a fast writer, and I've just been doing that for like 15 years now. So
nice. So you said your generation of writers. Just curious, how old are you?
I'm 26.
Okay, similar. I'm 29, so it's within the same similar thing. Yeah, Harry Potter. I remember that, and that was pretty significant for me as well.
Yeah, I was 11, I think, when the first movie came out. And that's why, of course, like jumped on like the bandwagon. Like, I was like, oh, and I remember one of my childhood best friends had been pushing it on me before Harry Potter was like a thing, And I was like, just like it wasn't what I was like looking for, And then I just like, and the first chapter is like not the most like arresting chapter when you're just expecting, I don't know, you're just like excited for like wizard battles or whatever.
Definitely. Yeah. No, she really does take her time with, the setup. And I remember that as well, too, because I was like, what am I reading? And then it's like, oh, wow. I am not the same anymore.
So much more now, but I mean, and there are plenty of course, like 10 and 11-year-olds who read that first chapter and they love it from the get-go, but like that just like wasn't me at that point in time. And then I was like, I saw the trailers, I'm like, oh, there's like flying and there's stuff happening, so let me give it a shot, and I loved it so much. So yeah.
Well, that's like just such a cool part about both middle grade and YA is that you're getting in, it's a wide audience. It's more than just that age, but you've got these impressionable people that are trying to figure this crazy, super intense world out, and it's really important to be as real as possible. And that's something that you nail in your books. Like, it's it's okay to just be kind of a mess, and then rebuild yourself.
Yeah, I think like when I'm writing something, I'm never writing from this place of like. I think like all my characters, like I don't like design them to be messy. But, certain ideas and details, like, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that's definitely, like, this is the kind of, like, mess up that this person would be guilty of or something. And I'm like, I love seeing the reviews where everyone's like, yeah, these characters are all flawed. I'm like, yes, because, like, I'm flawed. My best friends are flawed. Like, everyone in my family's flawed, like, and I still love all these people, but like no one's perfect. Like that would be boring. That's not interesting fiction. That's not an interesting life.
Yeah.
And it's just, and yeah, I mean, I always think when I'm writing anyway, like I'm generally writing from this place of like me trying to figure something out. I never want to write from this place where I have all the answers beforehand. Like that's gonna lead to a completely different narrative, I'd imagine. So it's better when I'm like kind of just like figuring it out with a character. Like in the case of History's All You Left Me, where it's like, okay, I didn't lose my boyfriend, like didn't drown or whatever, my ex, but like, what would this have looked like if he had? So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to write my way through that and like figure it out or whatever. And it felt very healing for me anyway, because even though he hadn't died, like a breakup still feels like some form of abandonment. So, he definitely wasn't as alive for me as he was when we were dating. So it just kind of like heightened it to a different level to write the book. But yeah, so I don't know. I love books with messy characters and just like mess ups and chaos in general. And I'm so happy that people are appreciating my characters screwing up royally.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all want something to relate to, I think, and you can't relate to perfection because it doesn't exist.
Right.
And
no, good point. Yeah.
And stumbling through things. Yeah. Well, and like stumbling, you have to make mistakes in order to learn and to grow. So. Yeah.
No, totally. I mean, it's just like, it's another reason why I struggle with like happily ever afters, especially like at was, like 16, 17, 18 or whatever. Like, I was like, I'm 26 right now. Like, where the hell is my happily ever after? Like, am I like 10 years late on that or whatever? But like, I'm seeing, I don't think I'm ever going to write an ending where like everything is resolved. Like, there's just like, or that you really feel like the character achieved like maximum 100% victory. Like, that's just like not a book I'm ever gonna write. Like, I like to think that, like, the way that I leave off my books or whatever, like, that I resolve like the main thread, like the main arc that we were, kind of like watching the character embark on or whatever. And then if I ever wanted to write a sequel or something, the material's there. Like, I mean, it wouldn't feel like I'm like forcing something to happen out of nowhere just for the sake of like popping out another book, like I would have to genuinely feel like that there's still a story there. And I can imagine, like, I can think of some stuff, like if I wanted to go back and like explore Griffin's story, like I already know some threads that I could possibly follow. If I wanted to do the same for More Happy Than That, I definitely know what I could do there, so yeah, I love being able to imagine that my characters are so messy that they find some sort of like they're able to sort through some of their like mess or whatever, and then but they don't completely clean up after themselves.
And as a reader, I really like to be able, I feel like I like when I feel that, like, okay, this, like you said, main conflict is resolved, or but then there's places there, there's room there, and History Is All You Left Me definitely does that. Is you have places that your imagination fills in, like possibilities of what could happen, and that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So what are like some things that you do to kind of get yourself like in the mindset to write? Are you able to just sit down and slam it out, or do you have to stew? Do you have like things like, I rely heavily on music?
Oh, yeah, no, music definitely helps. I feel like it's a lot of like long walks and showers and stuff like that, and often just like when I'm really struggling, I just kind of like put my laptop to the side. I have like notebooks that I use for each book. So like I'll go try to like map out a scene or something, or like just like write out, like, I mean, there's like one of the best friends, Wade, in the book, like I was like really struggling with him. So like I just kind of took out my notebook and I wrote like 3 or 4 pages of just details about him, like things that just kept like springing to mind. I was like, okay, he's like into jazz, he's not into like the some of the music that like some of the other teens are particularly excited about today or something. And I just like kept filling with details, and I was like, okay, he loves gum, and just like little small things that, like, even if it's such a tiny detail, it can ultimately spark like a bigger memory between the characters. And then if I have that memory, like I can dig deep and like, oh, like why did this matter so much or whatever. Literally whatever would come to mind, I just built that character like from that. And like, I mean, I was kind of like modeling it off some stuff, but for the most part, like that was like a really difficult character for me to create. So I just like, that's what I did. And then, yeah, so I mean, but like for the actual like scenarios, like for Griffin's headspace, it was just me kind of like looking back on like the grief of my relationship, and just like taking it to like the super next level. Like, I mean, yeah, just like really going there, and this frustration of like this, like, okay, like for me in my personal situation, it was like, okay, like we were friends, broke up, but we were still friends, so I was able to talk to him. That couldn't be the case for Griffin. He can't talk to Theo, except he does. Like, he decides to keep talking to him. Theo just can't talk back.
I love that so much. That is one of those details that really just, it brings the story to the next level as far as like just realness. That was good stuff. 2 thumbs up on that one.
Yeah, I know. That was like, it was one of the things. So I was like trying to figure out like structure wise, like how I wanted to do this book, because my first book is speculative, and then what's going to be my third book was actually the second book I wrote that was also speculative. And then I had this idea, and I was like, for History Is All You Left Me, and I'm like, oh, this feels like super realistic. Like, is this super realistic? Am I going to try to? And I was trying to figure out like if there was like some like speculative conception I wanted to bring into it, and it just like I was trying to force, and I'm like, no, now you're trying to like be on brand or whatever, and that's stupid. Like, that's not what this story needs. So just like let the story be what it wanted to be or whatever. But I was like, I still wanted like some weirdness to it. And as I was writing the first chapter, I just found Griffin kind of like dressing Theo, and I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is my thing that's going to make it like more exciting for me than just like a straightforward contemporary novel, you know? And I mean, it is like contemporary, but it's still just like, structure wise, it's a little bit. It was different enough that like it was exciting for me, and it just like it. I don't know. It was one of the easiest things I'd done for that book, and I'm so happy that it's there. It's probably one of my favorite parts about it as well.
Yeah, no, it definitely is for me. Because, you know, that is definitely something when you don't have that person there anymore. Your mind is, you know, used to talking to them and like, you know, still, but it's less so. Whereas like something will happen and I will want to talk to my friend. And yeah, the idea that he just continues is just, it's pretty special.
No, and I mean, I know I was also drawing from like a personal place too, because I can remember myself speaking to myself or whatever, or like even like speaking to myself in my head, which is exactly what Griffin's doing. Like, he's not like speaking out loud, you know, and like speaking it, you know, by people. He's just like actually thinking in his head. And then I mean, there's still times I catch myself like just getting like so caught up in a conversation in my head, whether I'm plotting something or like anticipating a conversation, that I feel my lips moving a little bit, like I'm about to start speaking it, but I'm like not actually actively trying to speak. So I kept thinking about that a lot, and then that just like it reinforced that element.
But the mind is such a deep and complicated, you know, it's intense in there, and it really is, and it's definitely like it's an interesting thing to play with, you know, when you're writing, is just, you know, kind of making the most of the human brain, you know, in a couple different ways, I guess.
For sure.
I'm getting that like Griffin was, you know, just getting in his headspace was, you know, one of the more challenging parts about writing it. What do you consider like a hurdle that you got over, as far as, you know, needing to get over, if there is one?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. If there was one.
Yeah. If there's one. Top 5.
I'm sure. Well, I mean, so originally the novel was, it wasn't nonlinear. It was just so the book is divided up into 2 sections, history and today, where, you know, in the today section, we see Griffin grieving with Theo's boyfriend Jackson, and then in the history section, we see Griffin and Theo fall in love for the first time and all that follows. But originally, it was just the today section, and because like the story I wanted to tell was like, you know, especially as I was thinking about my situation where I wasn't that friendly with my ex-boyfriend's new boyfriend immediately. Of course not. Like, I was like, well, if he had died, like, would I talk to this person at all? You know, like, we both love the same person. Like, why wouldn't we like try to connect over that? And so I wanted to just kind of like explore what that relationship would have looked like. But then I sent the first few chapters to my best friend, and he was like, oh, I really love this, but it's just super depressing. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks. You know, like, I was like, but I'm not about to like have Griffin cracking jokes and, you know, being like insensitive to like pure grief or whatever, just to like relieve the reader, you know, and make them feel better, and like I make it less of a hard read. So I just kept thinking, I was like, well, maybe I can like make it nonlinear and show like the history sections where like we can see Griffin and Theo fall in love for the first time, and like that would provide like, you know, authentic recess for the reader, where we get to actually like, you know, have genuine moments of like brightness, and which is going to make like the grief like hurt even more.
Yeah.
But it was still like, you know, at least it gives you a breath, you know, it's a breather, and I actually loved it because like up until then, like I hadn't like heard Theo's voice really, like he was just dead, and everything I knew about him was what Griffin was reporting to me, and so yeah, so it allowed me to like actually like kind of like interact with that character and understand the relationship on a way deeper level. So the biggest hurdle was like completing the today section of the book, and then going back and writing the history section to fill in like so many blanks, and then piecing the entire thing together. So it was like one single narrative, you know? And yeah, I mean, that required a lot of like maneuvering and multiple like Word files where I was like tracking stuff, and I had one file at one point for just the history section, then the today section, and then like a different calendar file. It was wild, and like I'm actually like am surprised / impressed that all the dates in the book are exactly what I want them to be. That I did not butcher that. I need to like knock on wood right now, because now I'm scared that something's going to pop up a different date or whatever. But yeah, so I think that was like the hardest part, since it wasn't originally designed that way. You know, like I was about like a third through the book when I had this idea, and then I was saying to my editor, I was like, "Hey, so I think I'm going to do this thing," and he was like, "Well, now that you've said it, like I can't unsee it, and now you have to do it." So like that's take it as my editorial note or like requirement, but like you have to like make that work now, and I'm so happy that it worked.
But yeah, I can totally see how the two different time, you know, the present and the past, it would be challenging to kind of, you know, keep all that in line. I just finished drafting something with multiple point of views, and making sure that the details like congealed at the end was made editing really interesting. I was like up at like 3:00 in the morning just staring at the ceiling, like, you know, details. What about the details?
It's really like the smallest details too. Like I'm trying to remember something now that like as you're saying this, I'm getting like these like big flashbacks of like almost triggering of like of how traumatic this like editing experience was, where like I had a whole separate like Word doc for like just details. Like, I mean, like let's say like a character in the book takes place between 2014 and 2017, where if the character gave another character like a shirt or something in 2014, that I don't completely, that shirt pops up again at some point in the narrative. Like whether if it's like, oh, I lost that shirt, the character declares that like 2016 or something, but like you can't just like introduce some things and then like have them completely vanish for the rest of the novel. Then it's almost like, what's the point? I could probably write a book on how brutal it was to edit that book.
Yep. Well, and it's also, like you said, like if you're going to go ahead and put something in, it needs to be for a good reason.
Yeah.
But then there's also, yeah, but then there's also, you know, you're getting in the zone and you're letting it flow and things pop up and it's like, okay, that works. Okay, well, now I need to make a note and make sure that it's consistent on the back end.
Yeah, I think I mean, I guess it was easy for me in some ways because like a lot of the more like physical items that were like introduced, like in the history sections, in the today section, some of them were like buried away because it's like, oh, well, this is a breakup. Like, I'm not going to like keep some of these things like up on the wall anymore and stuff. So, and you know, you also have to make sure that you're introducing stuff in the right place as well, because like, yeah, like let's say, you know, Griffin received something from Theo or whatever, or Griffin gave Theo something. Then he finds out way later that like Theo hid that thing and replaced it with something from his new boyfriend Jackson, you know, like, but you don't feel that impact if you didn't see Theo receive the gift in the first place. Like if that history chapter comes after that today chapter, you've lost your oomph there. So like you shouldn't have to like do like backwards thinking because of like, I don't know, a chapter that like wasn't positioned correctly.
Totally. Well, yeah, in order to get the punch, you need to have the proper amount of foreshadowing there. Because if you have it reversed, yeah, totally. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that can just, you know, keep you from sleeping, or at least me.
And dead. Yeah. No.
Yep. Yeah. I know it is. It's and so you have another book coming out later in the year, don't you?
Yes, I do. It's called They Both Die at the End. That's the title. And it comes out September 5th, 2017. And it's set in a world where you get a phone call the day you're going to die. And from this service called Deathcast. And it's about these two boys, Mateo and Rufus, who Meet Through the Last Friend app. They attempt to live a lifetime within a single day. Yeah, I love it. It's like part friendship, part love story, part bucket list story. Like it's another really grueling, difficult book that I just finished editing like a week ago. I was like working like through Christmas and the holidays. But it's fun.
Yay! Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So 2 books in 1 year. You must be totally stoked.
Yeah, I am. Like it's gonna be like I definitely. I was supposed to have a book come out fall 2018, but I had that pushed back until like mid 2019 because I just like I'm gonna want to break. Like I just and also like a fall release means I'll still be like traveling and promoting the book. Way after the new year, way up until like early 2018 and beyond. So I was just like, let me just like give me some breathing space for myself, and so I can also just like I'm not rushed to like produce another book. Like I have 2 new things that I can continue talking about throughout next year. Like I had nothing new in 2016, and I still traveled. I traveled probably even more than I did in 2015.
Yeah.
So like I can trust that I will like stay busy and like continue hitting like the festivals and circuits and such. And I'm also part of an anthology that comes out in July.
Oh, nice. So, what anthology?
It's called Because You Love to Hate Me. It's being published by Bloomsbury, and it was edited by this wonderful artist and writer, A-Marie, who's like Grammy nominated, and she's also on YouTube now and has a really dope channel. And the anthology is themed around villains, so we all wrote from the perspective of a villain. Like not some of them were inspired by like fan favorite villains and such. Others were just like crafted from like prompts and just like mood boards essentially. And
I love that.
So fun. It was really difficult, but like writing a short story is probably the hardest thing I've done. But I loved it so much. So I mean, it's gonna be a very busy year between like the January release, then the July anthology support, and then the September release, and just like tons of. I mean, I'm going to the UK in June.
Oh wow!
To promote history and also go see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Very cool.
Which I'm excited about.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, plus too, I mean, I don't know if finishing a book. I mean, you put so much thought, and you don't have it anymore. Like you put it in someone else's hands. There's this like weird void. Like after I finished mine, I was just kind of wandering around in a cloud.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. It's like when the hangover's finally going away and you're just kind of like, I don't know, still kind of like thrown. And yeah, I mean, like I feel double that right now. And I mean, it's so great. Like, I mean, the moment you finally get to like, I don't know, share the book with someone else, whether it's a beta reader or even just someone who's just like reading it to read it for you, or an editor, an agent, whatever the case may be, like that's a really great moment because like it's yeah, sure, it's a little like, I don't know, disorienting that this thing is like no longer yours, but it's also like I can share it with someone else who's going to like see the things that I can't see and will like know how to fix it and know how to address all these problems, or someone who I want to talk my problems out with, but they're not going to really understand like the full, like all the details until they like experience it themselves, So it's a good place. But I feel like writing for me has always been this cruel cycle. Like when I'm in the middle of editing something, I just want to be drafting something again for the first time. And whenever I'm drafting, I'm like, oh my God, I just want to be editing this already, like, or just like working on something that's already like not like this messy and gross, Like I'm like in the part, like now I'm in a phase where I'm drafting 2 different things. And I just know it's going to drive me crazy because I mean, one is at least like a co-write that it hasn't sold yet or anything, so it's still like super secret. But like, so I can at least like share that with her. But the other thing is like still this like sloppy thing that's like just me, and it's a weird place to be in right now.
Yeah, well, it definitely there's so many different phases, and there's like, I mean, for me, when it's like new in the beginning and you've got like, you're working on the backstories and that kind of stuff and you're figuring out, it's like all these like new things and it's very like fresh. And then it goes into like, now you're in the, you reach the point of no return and you're like, what is this?
Yep.
And then you got it. And then that's the great thing. I mean, editors, they come in and they help you and it's intense. Some of it's really,
no,
depending
totally.
on what the changes are, but it's also like, please help me with myself.
It's so helpful because like if you just try to edit yourself, there are many that like excel at it. Many self-published authors and such, and even traditionally published authors who know how to just like edit the hell out of themselves. But like with history, it was like I like more happy. Like I feel like I knew how to edit that book. History. I was like, here, like, what is this book? Like, I don't know what to do. And like, it was like originally 120,000 words, and and it's publishing at like 91,000 words, so it's like my longest book. But then my editor like encouraged me to like cut like 30,000 words, and he had like all the right details to like help me do that. Like, oh, this character's not working, that character's not working. But sometimes before you can even reach that stage, like if you don't have an editor, if you don't have an agent or a critique partner, what I find helpful is like after you get some distance from the book to like kind of read it as a reader and then write like a book review of it. Like write like, here's what this book is about. And it's super helpful because I used to be a book reviewer and we always had to like cite stuff naturally. And so I remember this like one instance in particular where I was like writing like, oh, this character is doing this thing because, and then I couldn't remember why they were doing it. And then I realized that it was like this thing that the character was just kind of doing and it felt like it was coming out of nowhere. Like I couldn't cite anything for it. And so it felt very out of the blue. And I remember thinking like, I don't ever want that to be like a reaction for my character. Like I want my characters to always have a sense of purpose, even if they're doing like the wrong thing. Like I want to have like some understanding as to why they're doing the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna like try to process it that way, and it just kind of like encouraged me to like write reviews of my own stuff, and it's been so helpful because like you figure out what you think your book is about a little bit, you figure out all the things you like about it, and then you go in on yourself and you say like, this book doesn't work because da 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 da. And then if you do that like draft after draft after draft, like you're hopefully going to reach this point where you love the book 100%. You see no issue with it. Like even if like an editor or somewhere down the line like tells you there's an issue with it, you personally don't have anything in the back of your mind that's keeping you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's like, I need to fix this some more or whatever. Like you're like, I have done everything that I could do to like make myself love this book. To like, if someone gave me this book right now, I would love it as a reader. And then hopefully it's the best thing out there that lands you an agent and lands you an editor and lands you a legion of readers.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a tricky thing is the time, like, that's something that I really needed to become disciplined with is like, okay, you've written it, now get away from it and don't look at it because it's like, you're not going to be able to, read it when you've just written it because your mind does things and you're not, you need that space to be able to read it like a reader and not like the person that wrote it.
Yeah. My best friend and my boyfriend, two separate people, like, both just finished like first drafts of things, and I was like, take a break, take the holidays, like that's it. Like my boyfriend just got back to work on his book like yesterday, and I was like, okay, you definitely have had time now that I can like, because like also like I'm telling them, I was like, look guys, like I'm gonna be there to read it for you, but I need to make sure that you did everything that you could first before like I see it, and if you try to read it right now, I promise you're not going to get the best result. Like so many writers make this mistake where like they don't give themselves a break and they like punish themselves like through what becomes like a really grueling editing process because like they just don't have the distance or like they screw themselves over because like they're too close to it that they can't see the errors for it. They haven't like taken a walk since completing the book and like or like sat there and just vegged out and like played video games or something. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like they think like, oh, this is like in such good shape, let me fix these commas and send it to an agent. And I'm like, that is a very small percentage of people that works for. Like I remember a couple friends telling me like, yeah, I wrote this book and then 3 months I sold it later in this major deal. I'm like, what? Who are you? Like, that is wild. But
I don't like to hear those stories. I like.
No. I mean, I tell every writer, I'm like, just plan on not being the exception. Just like, that's, I mean, it's such like basic, obvious advice, but like, people still get like dreamy eyed, like, oh, this is it. Like, I mean, I wrote a book before and that failed and went nowhere, but this is the book. And it's okay to feel confident in the book or whatever, but like, it's dangerous to think like, I don't have to edit that much because like, it's pretty much there. And like, people are going to just want it for the concept and stuff. And like,
that's
like,
not how that works.
No, it's not. It's like, I worked in publishing. I've worked in publishing I've worked in books for like 6 years now. Like, this is like, not how it works for the most part. Like, I know people who wrote like 10 books and none of them sold.
Yeah.
You know? And like, some of the best-selling authors today, like there's Marie Lu, who's like a #1 best-selling author, but you know, like, she wrote 10 books and she was like, after I write this next book, like, if this is not the book, I'm gonna just call it quits. That was the book, like, you know, and much acclaim, much success, you know, great sales, and like, and you know, she's one of my favorite authors today. But you know, it's always hard work. You know, like,
it is. It's such a journey from early conception of the ideas to all the way through.
No, and I tell people all the time, like, I mean, like, if you come up with a book idea, like I came up with the idea for They Both Die at the End. Maybe I think it was December. It was December 2012. And I just finished it, you know, like in the year that it's going to be published. Like, I've been working on this for 4 years, you know, like, I didn't start actively writing it until like a year later. But I mean, like, I spent a year thinking about this world. I spent a year thinking about all this stuff or whatever, like, which is why, I mean, when it came time to draft it, it took me 2 months, you know, like, I had some sense. And of course, like, 80% of that book changed, but it was still like, it was enough to get me to like complete the story and then start like rebuilding from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but literally from time of conception, like, I mean, I count that. Like, I mean, if you're really like actively thinking about it, and you know when you are and you know when you're not, like, I have some ideas that like I've thought about years ago, but I'm not actively thinking about them right now. So yeah, but I don't know. It's never a fast journey, I find.
Yeah. I've learned that as well. And it's a process. And ideas are just, I mean, yeah, like you said, like, you can have an idea that, like, you know, 6 years ago, and it's like, you know, when you first get it, it's like, okay, whatever. And then you go on to other stuff, and then out of nowhere, you know, you'll be vacuuming, and it's like, that's what this idea is.
Yeah, totally. I mean, my 4th book right now, the one that's contracted, like, I've had this idea for years, and like, I feel like every couple weeks, you know, I keep peeling away at something, like some idea that was already in place, and like, and just like uncovering something deeper. And I think that's what's so difficult sometimes with ideas. Like, once it's like the first idea you have, that's the idea that you keep pursuing for a bit. Like, you keep on that thread because you're like, oh, this is like the initial idea or whatever. This was the spark. And but sometimes it's like, maybe it's just enough to get you thinking about this world and which this thing could happen. But like, the exact details that you think of at the first time, like, those aren't always going to be like the right details. It's not always going to be like the right direction. Sorry, my dog is now like chewing at me.
It's all good. All 3 are by my feet. I get it.
But yeah, so you know, ideas are cool.
Yeah, they are. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in a lot of cases, it's like breadcrumbs. Like, your initial idea, it leads you somewhere else, and you know.
Totally.
Well, Adam, can you tell everybody where they can find you, Twitter and all that stuff?
Yeah, I keep it really simple. On Facebook, I'm just Adam Silvera. And on Twitter and Instagram, I am just at Adam Silvera, all one word. And it's I keep it no funny numbers, no special symbols. It's all there. I'm pretty active, especially on Twitter and Instagram.
Nice. And do you have a site for people to check out, or?
Yes, I have adamsilvera.com. Again, very simple.
So, yeah.
If you reach on email, this one is different. adamsilvera@gmail.com. So Adam Silvera was taken by a different Adam Silvera in the world. But I can be reached by Adam Silvera Writes.
Nice. Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was so much fun talking to you.
Talking to you as well. Best of luck with your writing as well.
Thank you, and good, exciting tour week and releases.
Yeah, thank you. I know 2017. This is the year I don't sleep, but 2018 I will catch up.
Nice. Hibernation must wait.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys. That pretty much wraps it up for this week. It was great having Adam on the show. Big thanks to him for coming on. Thanks to you guys for listening. And I tune in next week. I'll have Mike Cole on the show, and that was an awesome conversation. I'm looking forward to sharing it. And you know the deal. You follow me at Twitter at @MeBettingfield. Follow the show at Too Many Words Pod, Facebook, same names. And if you go to my site, contact details are there, as well as where to find my words. So, all right. Talk to you next week.